have a feeling that this is gonna be a short video. Hi friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing my October wrap-up. I'm not sure if it's the best time for me to be doing a wrap-up or even to film a video, to be honest. It's almost midnight, or it is midnight, I'm not sure. And I just had friends over for dinner and we had like drinks and stuff, and they just left and I started to clean and I have like the dishwasher running, and I felt like, hey, I have some time, I look nice, I can film a video. But I've had like half a bottle of Prosecco and a drink. I said in August that it was my worst reading month of the year. And then came September, and in my September wrap-up I said that was the worst reading month of the year. Well, I'm now doing my October wrap-up, and I can with certainty say that October was my worst reading month so far. It depends on how you define worst and best reading month. If we look purely at the amount of books read, that's when I'm saying that it's been my worst reading month. Now, I feel like in August and September I said that those were my worst reading months because the rating of the books I read, I didn't really enjoy them. The ratings were not that high. This time around I have enjoyed the books I read, but I read few books compared to what I normally read. So in October I read a total of 3 books. All of the books I read were printed, so I did not read any audiobooks and I did not read any ebooks. I only read printed physical books. I'm glad that I'm getting through my physical TBR. That makes me very happy. But I'm also buying more books, so I feel like I will never reach the end of my physical TBR. But that's another issue. All of them were targeted towards adults, so I didn't read any YA or middle grade. Although of course some of the books can be read by younger readers. Like, the audience does not define who can and cannot read anything. It's just like a target group. Then if we look at genres, one book was a fantasy, one book was a contemporary, and one book was a non-fiction. I'm quite good at actually reading those non-fictions. I'm surprised myself. I feel like it's been like one a month lately. And then finally, if we look at rating, one book I gave 3 stars, one book I gave 4 stars, and one book I gave 5 stars. The first book I read in October was Us Against You by Fredrik Backman. This is the sequel to Beer Town. If you know me, you know I love Fredrik Backman, you know I love Beer Town. I'm not gonna repeat myself that much more. This is the sequel. We're following the same characters about 6 months after the events that take place in Beer Town. The first book is about a city named Beer Town that is like a small town in the northern parts of Sweden. They are famous for their hockey, and like, it's a hockey town. Everyone plays hockey from when they can walk until they retire, basically. Everyone plays hockey. It's a very hockey crazed town, and they have this junior team that is doing very well. But one day, one of the guys in the junior team, the like star player of that youth's team, he sexually assaults and rapes a girl, and that kind of just messes things up in this town because like they were relying so much on this youth team, this junior team, to perform and like make the city famous and stuff like that. But now they're in this conflict, like, oh, but he did something bad. How do we handle that? It's a very good book. It's very interesting. It's very emotional, and I highly recommend it to everyone because I feel like the discussions that are held in this series are incredible, and I also feel like the characters are incredible. The ensembles, the characters, like, you fall for these characters in so many ways. They have so many layers and so much depth, and every character counts, no matter if that character just gets 1 page in the book or like half of the chapters. Like, that every character counts equally as much in the story, which is so cool. So this is the sequel. It takes place 6 months after the events of Beer Town. I said that. I gave this book 4 stars. I think it's my first Fredrik Backman book that was not a 5-star. It's more like a 4.5 to be honest. But the thing is, this is a longer book than Beer Town. It's almost 500 pages long, and it took a while for it to like start, I feel like. I kind of struggled reading this for the first 200 pages, but then after the 200 page mark, boy, did I just read everything and like loved it and like fell so hard for it. But the beginning is slower. I felt like sometimes the writing was a tad bit forced. If you know Backman's writing, he is, what I like to say, very effective with his words. He can convey a lot of emotions and make a lot of impact with just a sentence or a word or a phrasing or whatever. He does not need 10 pages of descriptions and dialogue in order to convey an emotion and stir something in you. And that's what I truly like with his writing. But I felt like that was a tad bit forced in the beginning, I think. Like, it was too Fredrik Backman. Just the fact that it took me longer to get into the book, and I did not like as many of the subplots in this book. I understand them, I understand where they are coming from and why they are important, but there's much more politics in this one, and there were a couple of new characters introduced that I didn't really care that much about compared to the characters from the first book, which I adore and love with all my heart. Those things combined, the slow start and the new subplots and characters, is what knocked a star off the rating basically. But nevertheless, I can't recommend this series enough. I can't recommend this writer enough. I'm currently reading the third and final book in the series and am having a blast, but my heart is also being torn out. I'm glad I got to it, honestly. The second book I read in October is more of a book I finished in October. I actually started reading it like in August, I think. And that book is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I read this as a printed book that I had lent from my library, but I have now had to return it because I've had it for like 3 months almost. But this is a memoir by Chanel Miller about Chanel Miller, who was sexually assaulted at Stanford campus in like 2016, I think. And this is her story. This is all of the events from the rape and forwards with the trial, and this is an amazing memoir, and I would recommend every single one of you to read it. Honestly, it is incredible. Chanel Miller has a way with words that, like, just from the preface and like the first couple of pages, she almost had me crying. She is so beautiful with words. I loved reading this book a lot, but it was also in many ways a very difficult book and also frustrating book. Obviously, it's about the rape and the act itself, I guess, but the majority of the book is more about the consequences after that one night. She talks a lot about like the event and where she woke up the day after and how all of that was handled, but then also the entire legal process, which is such a pain in the ass, and I feel so bad for her that she had to go through everything that she went through. Love this book. I think it should be mandatory reading. The way she phrases things and manages to put words and explain, and I love this book a lot. I want to buy it and keep it and possibly reread it sometime so that I can annotate it. For me at least, it was the highest rated book on my TBR on Goodreads, and it is so well deserved. So of course I gave this book 5 stars. I can't recommend it enough. And then the third and final book I read in October was The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first book in the Broken Earth series. I'm reading this for the read-along that I'm hosting together with some of my booktube friends, which are Jane, Femke and Esme. We read the first book in October. We're now reading the second book in the series in November, and then we'll finish the read-along with the third book in December. This is a fantasy sci-fi dystopia targeted towards adults, and it's interesting, it's different, and it's difficult. It's complicated, it's complex, and it doesn't really make much sense in the beginning. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I guess I did expect it to be different and complicated. This book is told through 3 different perspectives. One of the perspectives follows a woman whose child was just kidnapped by her husband, and she now goes on this quest to find her daughter. The second perspective is from a girl who's basically finding out that she has magical powers and enters this school to learn how to control it. And the third perspective follows a woman who's basically forced to make a child with another person with magical powers. This story is about a world where there are constant apocalypses. Every irregular number of years, the world goes to shits. Something happens. There's an apocalypse. There's the 5th season, as they call it. In this world also, some of the people have magical powers. The magic system is very much rooted in like physics and the earth. It's a very cool magical system, but they are basically treated as outsiders and slaves and are more used. So this is a very interesting read. I liked many aspects of this. I liked this book, I really did, but I did not love it. So I did give it 3 stars, but the reason I did not love it, I think, is because it felt very much like a build-up to the other books in the series, and there's just so much world building happening in this one. The prologue itself is super confusing, so if you pick this book up and read the prologue and feel like, oh no, I'm not sure if I can read this, ignore it. Keep on going, because like once you get past the prologue and like the first chapter, I promise you, you will get into this book. Just get past the prologue, ignore the prologue, like the prologue doesn't matter, it's just there to confuse you and make you scared. Another interesting thing with this book is that one of the characters' point of views is being told from second person. Now I knew this going into the book, and I'm actually surprised by how well done that was. I'm still not sure if it was a necessary choice to do it that way, but nevertheless it is an impactful choice. Once again, it might be something that will scare you off from this book. Try to ignore it and read it as if it is third person. If you're curious about more of our thoughts regarding the book, and if you want some spoilers and our thoughts about that, please check out the live show. I will link it. If you have read the first book, which I know many of you have, and feel like you want to pick up the second book, it's not too late. You can do it now and read it for November and join us for our discussions on the second book, The Obelisk Gate. I am impressed by this book. The writing is stunning. The representation is amazing. There's a lot of like non-conformative, gender fluid sort of characters in this. Great representation, great themes also regarding the environment and the society and like social classes and stuff. So many great things about this book. The reason why I'm only giving it 3 stars is because I didn't love it. I didn't connect to the characters, but I do feel like I will appreciate the second and third book so much more because of this book. And that's it for my October wrap-up, actually. I'm very glad with the 3 books that I read. I finally finished a book I've been meaning to finish for like 2 or 3 months. I read a book by my favorite author, and I read a book that's been on my TBR for ages and is the first in an adult fantasy. Even though it's a bad reading month if we consider amount of books read, I feel like it was a good reading month in regards to my goals. Hopefully this makes for a quick wrap-up, and hopefully it won't take me too long to edit it. Please let me know, how was your reading month in October? What did you read? How much did you read? Did you read anything at all? If not, what had you hoped to read but never got to? Please share that with me. If you have read any of the books I talked about, please let me know. I would love to discuss them. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. Please take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!
You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes